take it personal. He's going to give you some good information today. Let me tell you a little bit about Roland Martin. How many of you have seen Roland Martin on TV One? I know you watch. How many of you have seen him on MSNBC? How many of you remember him from CNN? Oh, yeah. How many of you know he tells the truth? How many of you know he's the black voice of America? How many of you know that he's not there to fool you? So don't get your feelings hurt tonight. It ain't personal. Roland Martin is the premier voice and the premier person in black America. He does not hold his tongue, and he won't take much time. So when he says what he says, it's going to be all right. Tonight, you'll have an opportunity to talk to him personally. There will be people in the audience who will give you an opportunity to ask any question. Critics and opponents, very welcome. Those of you who are for his initiative, he's for that. The initiative is what it is. It's a Roland Martin initiative. I don't want you to get confused. It's not political for Roland. That's not him. It is an initiative that Roland decided to take on himself because Roland Martin says, well, if you're not going to do it, I'm going to do it. Roland Martin is the black voice because Roland Martin, when I met Roland Martin, his good friend is here, Roy S. Johnson, who started Savoy Magazine with AL.com, the premier journalist for ESPN, is here, and we all met. I met Roland in 1990. I saw this man in 1990 as well in Kansas City at the National Association of Black Journalists, and I didn't know what to do. I was a little 20-some years old, and Roland Martin did what he needed to do. He's been working for black newspapers. He started black newspapers in Chicago and Houston. So he's not new to journalism, but he's certainly not new to writing about the issues of the black community. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. Roland Martin is here to talk to you candidly, and you can talk back. Right now, school choice is a black choice.
Video 1.
Albert Einstein once said, everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today on trial we have modern day schooling. Glad you could come. Not only does he make fish climb trees, but also makes them climb down and do a 10-mile run. Tell me, school, are you proud of the things you've done? Turning millions of people into robots, do you find that fun? Do you realize how many kids relate to that fish swimming upstream in class, never finding their gifts, thinking they are stupid, believing they are useless? Well, the time has come, no more excuses. I call school to the stand and accuse him of killing creativity, individuality, and being intellectually abusive. He's an ancient institution that has outlived his usage. So, Your Honor, this concludes my opening statement, And if I may present the evidence of my case, I will prove it.
Proceed.
Exhibit A. Here's a modern day phone. Recognize it? Here's a phone from 150 years ago. Big difference, right? Stay with me. Here's a car from today. And here's a car from 150 years ago. Big difference, right? Well, get this. Here's a classroom of today. And here's a class we used 150 years ago. Now ain't that a shame? In literally more than a century, nothing has changed. Yet you claim to prepare students for the future? But with evidence like that, I must ask, do you prepare students for the future or the past? I did a background check on you and let the record show that you were made to train people to work in factories, which explains why you put students in straight rows, nice and neat, tell them sit still, raise your hand if you want to speak, give them a short break to eat, and for 8 hours a day, tell them what to think. Oh, and make them compete to get an A letter which determines product quality, hence grade A of meat. I get it. Back then, times were different. We all have a past. I myself am no Gandhi. But today, we don't need to make robot zombies. The world has progressed. And now we need people who think creatively, innovatively, critically, independently, with the ability to connect. See, every scientist will tell you that no two brains are the same. And every parent with 2 or more children will confirm that claim. So please explain why you treat students like cookie cutter frames or snapback hats, giving them this one-size-fits-all crap.
Watch your language.
Sorry, Your Honor, but if a doctor prescribed the exact same medicine to all of his patients, the results will be tragic. So many people would get sick, yet when it comes to school, this is exactly what happens, this educational malpractice, where one teacher stands in front of 20 kids, each one having different strengths, different needs, different gifts, different dreams, and you teach the same thing the same way? That's horrific. Ladies and gentlemen, the defendant should not be acquitted. This may be one of the worst criminal offenses ever to be committed. And let's mention the way you treat your employees.
Objection. Overruled. I want to hear this.
It's a shame. I mean, teachers have the most important job on the planet, yet they're underpaid? No wonder so many students are short-changed. Let's be honest, teachers should earn just as much as doctors, because a doctor can do heart surgery and save the life of a kid, but a great teacher can reach the heart of that kid and allow him to truly live. See, teachers are heroes that often get blamed, but they're not the problem. They work in a system without many options or rights. Curriculums are created by policymakers, most of which have never taught a day in their life. Just obsessed with standardized tests. They think bubbling in a multiple choice question will determine success. That's outlandish. In fact, these tests are too crude to be used and should be abandoned, but don't take my word for it. Take Frederick J. Kelly, the man who invented standardized testing, who said, and I quote, "These tests are too crude to be used and should be abandoned." Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if we continue down this road, the results will be lethal. I don't have much faith in school, but I do have faith in people. And if we can customize healthcare, cars, and Facebook pages, then it is our duty to do the same for education, to upgrade it, change it, do away with school spirit, because that's useless. Unless we're working to bring the spirit out of each and every student, that should be our task. No more Common Core. Instead, let's reach the core of every heart in every class. Sure, math is important, but no more than art or dance. Let's give every gift an equal chance. I know this sounds like a dream, but countries like Finland are doing impressive things. They have shorter school days. Teachers make a decent wage. Homework is non-existent, and they focus on collaboration instead of competition. But here's the kicker, boys and girls. Their educational system outperforms every other country in the world. Other places like Singapore are succeeding rapidly. Schools like Montessori, programs like Khan Academy, there is no single solution. But let's get moving, because while students may be 20% of our population, they are 100% of our future. So let's attend to their dreams, and there's no telling what we can achieve. This is a world in which I believe. A world where fish are no longer forced to climb trees. I'll rest my case.
So 2 years ago.
Hey guys, my name is Prince EA, and I want to say thank you so much for watching my video. But now, I want to know what you think. How can we together create a more efficient, effective, and just better future of learning? I want you to visit nestday.com/preorder the future and share your thoughts and ideas on the topic. Peace.
So 2 years ago, when I was in Selma for Selma 50, I was approached by an elected official who said that, I understand you're a supporter of school choice. And I said, absolutely. He said, well, this law is about to get passed in Alabama, and a lot of people are scared. They're freaking out what's going on. And I said, well, he said, will you be willing to come back and talk about it? I said, absolutely. I said, I've traveled all around this country, going to different cities, different states, talking about this whole issue of education, talking about choice, whether it's charter schools, magnet schools, vouchers, homeschool, online school, you name it. And then in April, when I was at Bishop Jake's speaking on school choice there, we had a packed room where literally the fire marshal tried to shut us down 3 different times because there were so many people who were in that room. That tells you how many black pastors were interested in this idea, because they said this is the civil rights issue of the 21st century. So there were a number of them who were from Alabama, and they said, will you come back? And I said, we'll do it this summer. And this is not an issue that's about Alabama. I've been in Chicago, Memphis, Nashville, Tulsa, Oklahoma. We've been in Sacramento, been all around this country dealing with this whole issue as to how do we confront what's happening with the education of black kids. And let me be real clear. I have a black show on a black network that black people own. I run 3 black newspapers. I'm very clear in terms of where I stand. This is a black conversation. Because for us, this is a black problem. And when I look at the education stats in terms of where our kids will be in the next 20, 30 years, we're going to have a bigger black problem than the one that we have right now. And that's why we wanted to have this conversation. And the reason I said this is not about cheerleaders and about folks who only support it. I said anybody can come out, because I don't care where you stand. This is not either or. I don't buy the whole nonsense, and I'm sick and tired of this whole back and forth debate where it's either or, because the reality is and. The education system is a delivery system. It's not the system. It's a system. It's not the system. And so that's one of the reasons why we want to talk about this. So we're going to do this a couple different ways. One, we're going to have our panelists come up. I'm going to bring them up in a second. Later in the program, we're also going to show to you, and you're the first folks to see this. What I've done is I've gone across the country, and we've talked to and profiled black-owned, black-run charter schools that are highly successful. Because part of the problem in this debate, and let me be clear, I made this clear to the people in the ed reform movement. I said, first of all, the movement is too white. Oh, let me be real clear. I get paid by black people, so I'm not there for a check from them. And I told them, we were sitting in a room last year at the National Charter Conference, and I can tell you collectively sitting around the table was probably $10 billion worth of foundations that are backing various initiatives. I said, this is too white. I said, black people don't know any of y'all, and they don't trust any of y'all. I said, you don't even know how to talk to black people. And then I had a gentleman who was in the session. He was Hispanic. He said, well, I believe in inclusion. What about us? I said, you are more than happy to do school choice is the Latino choice. I said, but I'm here for black people. And I let them know that, and I also let them know that part of the reason I'm here is because when that law was passed 2 years ago, the ed reformers left. They packed up and left. And I said, that's the dumbest thing in the world, because what you're doing is you're contributing to the problem of bad charter schools, because you leave, you're not helping people build from the ground up, have strong accountability, and so then you leave and say on to the next state. I said, no, you actually have to help people create from the beginning successful schools as opposed to then complain. I'm not interested in the concept of charters. I'm interested in the reality, and that's the difference. And so later on, so what I did was we went around the country and we profiled 5 black-run charter schools that are highly successful. There are 5 of the best schools, period. Not black-run, 5 of the best, period. And so you're going to see a profile of one of the sisters who runs a school in Memphis, and hearing from them and seeing how they actually shared their story. Then I'll wrap it up with my comments, and then we'll also take questions from all of you as well. So first off, let's go ahead and get this started. Our panelists can come on up. So stand up. First and foremost, George Parker, folks. He is the former president of the Washington, D.C. Teachers Union. Give it up for George Parker. Let's actually just push him up. So where's Corey and Amber? Let's push these chairs up. I want to bring those chairs up a little closer. Richard Franklin, who's president of the Birmingham Local 2115 American Federation of Teachers. Philip Turner, administrator of Northside Christian Academy here in Birmingham. All right, Dr. Thomas Beaver, senior pastor of New Rising Star Church. Dr. Yvette Richardson, State Alabama School Board member. Jewel Turner, who is a parent here in Birmingham. Where's Jewel? Come on, Jewel. And there are others who I will be going to in the audience pointing out about this very issue. And so just be prepared for that. And so now look, I'm going to be moving all around, so don't think I'm going to be staying in one spot. I'm gonna throw this out first to you, Pastor Beavers, because I had you on the show this morning, and you're dealing with the issue where you wanted to open a charter school. You got denied by the Birmingham School Board. You appealed to the state commission. They approved it. Then the Birmingham School Board is suing the state, saying they couldn't override their decision. And so you now have to wait until 2018. How does it make you feel as a brother who's trying to open a K-8 school, and now those students have to wait another year to see even if you could possibly open that school? Are they not up there? Right. Y'all brought the water, but not the mics. They can't be thirsty because they ain't talked.
Take 1, 2. Yeah, to be quite honest, it's very disheartening to see the opposition that we have experienced, especially from our own people at the Birmingham City Board of Education. Our board has been in a state of what I would call dysfunction over the past few years. As I told you this morning, anytime you see us continue to change superintendents, but we do not change boards, it says that you cannot work with anybody. And who's the common denominator in that? It is the board. And so therefore, as a consequence, we did apply to Birmingham City. We did everything that they asked us to do. They were very unclear as to the timing of their application, or if they would even put out an application when the law was passed, and we decided to contact them. They did not contact us, but yet we got very, very vague response from them. And then the state timeline was different from the Birmingham City timeline, which confused everybody as well. So Birmingham never told us they would put out an application. So we actually applied to the state commission first before we went to Birmingham City, because we didn't want to miss their deadline, which was before Birmingham City's, when Birmingham City did not even have a deadline in the first place. And the moment we applied to the state was getting ready to hear our application. And the moment they got ready to hear our application, Birmingham City threatened to sue the state, which put us back into the politics. So we had to go back through the Birmingham City Board of Education, and they told us even before we turned in our application, we're going to deny you. So we went into it knowing that we would be denied, knowing that the first step to being approved is to be denied by the Birmingham City Board of Education.
So hold on, so 1 second. So you had not even made your case?
Had not even made our case. Had not even turned in an application.
And they decided we will deny you before we even look at your application?
They didn't officially deny us, but they told us to our face, we are going to deny you. This is not going to pass.
Why did you want to start a K-8 charter school?
I pastor in zip code 35206. It's high crime, it's high poverty. I believe that the two are interconnected. When people don't have what they need, they take what they need by any means necessary, which is also connected to a disparity in the educational system. When kids can't get a great education, it limits the kind of job that they are able to get. They are unable to have a job with livable wages, which throws them back into the cycle of poverty, and we have to climb high just to get to the bottom. Our church is heavily involved in community development. We see it as how we develop people. We develop people 6 ways: through education, financial literacy, workforce development, housing, recreation, and the church. But we already have so many efforts in education, and a charter school was the next step to help the kids who already come to the program that we have at our church.
Richard, why do you oppose charters?
Testing. Well, it's interesting you would ask that question being from the American Federation of Teachers, the thing that I always laugh about, and I'm appreciative for being invited here, in 1988, Albert Shanker, president of AFT, actually was the person who came up with the idea for charter schools. But it's not what we see today. You see in many situations it's for profit, people are making money. His idea was that we would turn it into learning lunch pads for teachers and parents to do what's best for the kids. To give an example, I remember reading his book in science. If a teacher wanted to take the kids outside the entire week, because we have all these red tapes that are put in place, they couldn't do it. He wanted to be creative and to be learning pads. I differ a little bit with Pastor Beavers, and one of the things that I think that's killing this for our community is that the political influence of Alabama and the racism that's occurred. I agree with you that when we as a community, as African Americans do something, but Pastor Beavers has to tell the truth. Everybody that's at the table that's leading is not looking like us and don't have the best interest for Birmingham City Schools. There are laws that was written that the state school board member, Dr. Richardson, would tell you they weren't even involved. It was a political situation. If we're gonna tell the story, we gotta tell it all. But our children suffer because in Birmingham and in the state of Alabama, the history, we have 3 former state superintendents that led this state in public education that's leading this reform movement. Why would we follow them, Roland?
But you didn't answer my question. No, actually he didn't. When I specifically asked, why do you oppose charters? The one answer was, well, the guy who came up with the idea in 1988 has gotten away from that. So you said it's for profits. Nearly 70% of charter operators in the country are single management companies. Most of them typically are churches, 70%.
Right.
Now, when you say they're for profit, who are you talking about?
People that don't look like us.
Okay, but
when you ask, I know all about charters. What I'm saying is...
No, but that's what I'm asking. So when you say they're for profit, who?
White people that don't live in the city of Birmingham. This is a takeover movement that's going on when you talk about Birmingham.
Right now...
When you say, again, when you say...
How many charters exist in Birmingham right now?
0.
Okay, so when you say white people are running these charters, there are none.
No, Roland. What I'm saying is when you started out, you started this conversation saying that you work for a black station, you black on black. Roland, in the state of Alabama throughout its history, we have never had control of anything.
Okay, is he black?
Oh, he's black.
He wants to do a charter school. No, 1 second, I'm asking.
Okay, go ahead.
Is he black?
Right.
He wanted to start a charter school.
Right.
Are there white people behind him?
Yes.
Who?
We have a Church of the Highlands. That's regentrifying Woodlawn community in Birmingham.
Hold on,
let me.
Hold on, no. 1 second, Pastor. 1 second. 1 second. No, 1 second. Okay. And this is why I'm asking these questions.
Right.
One, I don't do innuendo.
Right.
I don't do allegations. I do facts.
That's
and so I'm asking. So you're saying that Pastor Beavers, who wanted to start a charter school, he's not. So you're saying he's just a front, or is it his school?
He's a front.
So who is running his school then?
He don't have it yet, but on paper they had to turn into an application. The application that was turned into Birmingham City Schools had a state representative who sat on the charter commission, which the state representative is in trouble now, but they changed the application when it went to the state. We didn't set the law in Birmingham. This is why I agree with you, and I've said this to Pastor Beavers. They set the laws and parameters of what Birmingham or any district had to do. We didn't set it, per se, us. So a lot of the things that happened, that it was new, and that the people who said it, I heard him say Birmingham City Schools. Well, if you read our law, they had no choice but to deny. It doesn't leave an opinion. You have to deny. But if you just study who controls the process, it's not us.
No. You say who controls schools. Pastor Beavers, white folks control you?
No.
Who controls your school? So your charter school, who put your application together?
We hired a consultant to write our application. And that consultant was out of Denver, Colorado, and that's who put the application together.
And you hired that consultant, why?
I hired the consultant because I'm a pastor. I know what I want kids to have, but I'm not an educator. So in order for me to accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish, I went and hired my blind spots.
Okay. So what I'm trying to, here's what I'm still trying to understand, because this is also, and I've heard this all across the country. You have black folks who want to start charter schools. Are you saying that any black person who's starting it, there are white folks behind them, so every black person who wants to start one, they're held into question? Because, so what does that actually mean?
No, the board that he set up, and he knows I've been through the process. It started out with his whole congregation somewhere, and I said, if Pastor Beavers is behind this and the people in this room, when we went to Montgomery, out of the 5 people that was there, the 4 people that was on whatever this board were white. It was some business, one of the bank owners and different stuff. What I'm saying is, if we're gonna tell the story, we have to tell the truth. If we're gonna empower our people, we have to lead this charge. The people that are leading the conversation in Alabama are not us. That's what I'm saying.
And is part of the reason folks not leading the conversation in African American, because are we actually trying to be a part of the charter system?
No, Roland, it's not just charter schools.
No. I'm speaking specifically of this. The reason this is important, and I want to go to you, Boardman Richardson, is because we could very easily say, well, I'm going to question your motive. But at the end of the day, if there's a system, the law has been passed, somebody will take advantage of it. Should black folks be taking advantage of a very law that is passed in this state that others will be taken advantage of? Do you believe that black folks should be involved in the charter school movement in this state?
Before I answer that, let me first say I have been against charter schools. However, now that it's in law, I feel that we've got to find a way to make it work for us as black people. It's here to stay. It's not going away. And the process that you're talking about, I did some research. And you must realize that when new things come along, people are afraid. So I understand that when you brought your application before the Birmingham board, they denied it. However, that's why there is a commission. They looked over it and they found out that everything was in line, your finances, your operations, and your design. But yes, now the one who was against charter schools, I'm now in line with saying we've got to find a way to make them work for us. If not, those people who don't look like us, as Richard was saying, will be making the money. We know what's best for our children.
And see, also, it's very interesting when I hear folks talk about, again, what's for profit, when I hear folks talk about, in terms of how, who's taking advantage of. So here's my question. And anybody can answer this question if you're familiar with Birmingham School Board. Who gets the software contract right now for the school district? Are they black? No. So who gets the soft drink contract? Who controls the janitorial contract? Who controls the construction contracts? Why am I asking these questions? Because if we're saying that, well, these charters, these white folks over here making the money, they making the money with the existing school district. So, correct me if I'm wrong, board member.
Yes.
In this state, if it's your charter school, who determines the curriculum of that school?
The person who's running the charter school. Now, let me tell you why I had been against charter schools. Because the public school money is going to follow that child.
Right.
And our schools already are underfunded.
That's right.
And we have mandates that are not being funded. So I have been upset with that, because if my child goes to, and I'm sure it's going to be Star Academy, I've done my research, it's going to be a great school. However, the money for my child, where that child should have gone to Fairfield, will follow that child. That's my concern.
But here's my question. Okay, so if it's your charter school, you control the curriculum.
That's correct.
Who controls the construction of that school?
I control it, and my board. Now,
Right. No, I'm talking about when that school is being built, constructed.
Yes.
Who is determining who gets the construction contract? The person who runs the charter school?
That's correct, because they have their own board. You'll have your own
One
governing board.
Now,
Yes.
the software contract at his charter school.
Right.
Who determines who gets that contract?
He and his board will determine it.
The janitorial contract, who determines who get that contract? No, get the microphone back.
Oh, you want me? Oh, I'm sorry. You said his school.
Right.
His school. Okay.
So everything in that charter school, the person who runs the charter school determines who gets those contracts.
That's correct.
So my point is, if you have black-run charter schools, that means the African-American running the charter school is determining who gets the contracts. Now, you're shaking your head. So, okay, are you saying that's not true?
Because the board, and I want to make
When you
this
say
clear.
the board, who's the board?
Pastor Beavers is sitting here, but Pastor Beavers would not be running the charter school. His board runs charter school.
His
in our
governing
law,
board.
He's
The governing board.
He can't run it, and that's why I said there are 4 whites on that governing.
But no.
board.
But here's the deal, though. Again, so let's say he has a charter school, and his board is all black. Who now is determining who gets the contracts?
The board, but that's the same thing with the local school
No,
board.
but no, it's not.
Why?
Because if the board is determining who gets the contracts, then you're not hoping, begging, and praying you get a crumb. You're deciding who gets the contracts. So part of the issue, so when you say you oppose charter schools, if you're opposing a black-run charter school, you're opposing black folks decide who gets contracts.
No, the question,
and so,
that's not what I said. You said the front. I said
No.
he still will not be in control of that charter school.
I am making the point here, and this is one of the fundamental issues with charter schools that we have to accept. And that is, when we say, I'm opposing it, it's for profit, who's benefiting, this is an opportunity for us to actually control every facet of the school. The curriculum,
I agree.
the contracts, we get to control who we hire, we control the entire ball game. So we're not going, please, pretty please,
Right.
Can y'all do this? We're saying we're controlling the process. You were shaking your head when you were, as a parent, you're listening to this, and you were about to jump out of that chair, so go ahead and make your comment.
Thank you, Roland. Couple of things. It really makes me sad to hear the back and forth about really politics within school choice, because so many times, well, just from this panel tonight, I heard no one mention my child. And we forget that so many times in the process. I am a former charter school parent. I relocated to Birmingham.
From where?
From Atlanta. And my child went to one of the best charter school, black-owned charter schools in Atlanta. And coming here was a bit of a shock because I was not aware that charter schools were not here. I thought they were everywhere. And so the other thing that saddens me is what Dr. Richardson mentioned was that she was against it because the money didn't follow the child. Originally that the money didn't follow the money followed the student. And as a parent, my money should follow the student. That's not any reason for me to be against charter. And I'm so glad that you've come to the light now. But, okay. Okay, I doubt very seriously if I'll go that direction, but as a parent, my child was in Birmingham City schools. People talked about Birmingham City schools so bad when I got here. I said, I'm gonna give it a chance. My daughter was fortunate enough to get into one of the magnet schools, and she did very well there. The school went to the 5th grade. So for 6th grade, I was left with no choice. No choice. I was forced to send my child to a failing school with bathroom stall doors missing, teachers telling the students about how a child hung themselves from being bullied. This is not an environment that you want for your child, but I have no choice, no other choice, but to remove my child from Birmingham City schools and send her to a private school, which also takes away from the revenue that I could be pouring into Birmingham as a whole. So when people say they're against charter, I kind of look with kind of the look that you have on your face, disbelief. Because at the end of the day, I want the best for my child. And it is a socioeconomic issue. And when we realize that we're at the end of the bus on this issue, and we start creating charter schools like Pastor Beavers is trying to do in our communities, and parents getting more involved, then we'll create a better future for all of our kids.
Philip, it's interesting when I talk to people and they talk about, that's pulling money out of our schools. What is interesting to me is, in no other area of our lives would any of us spend money in something that we know is failing. Now follow me here. I am not saying every school is failing. I'm not saying that every student is failing. I'm not saying schools are filled with bad teachers and bad administrators and bad school boards, whatever. But in sports, they have a phrase, ball don't lie. When you have schools where the proficiency rate is in single digits, please explain what you would tell a parent if that's the only place they can go, and they're going, so your proficiency is 6 and 7% in math, and so you talking about STEM jobs, but you had 6 or 7%. What trips me out is when we keep saying, but no, don't take that money out. No, snatch it, because clearly somebody's not doing something good with it right now.
Right.
Go ahead.
So what happens a lot of times, and it might be not be answering your question exactly, but for our kids, like you said, you wouldn't buy anything fake. You know, our kids get Jordan shoes every month, and they'll go do that. But as far as education, as far as private schools, some people feel we're snatching money away too. I would not allow, if I was a parent, to let my child go to a failing school with a private school option there. Private schools, which I'm administrator of, we also get to control our curriculum, and we also get to, my school would get to appoint our board. Our board is people from all over the city in different walks of life. So I would not allow my child to do anything failing, and that's one thing we had to get out of that mentality. We're proud people, and we don't need to fail in any aspect.
George, you were the head of the teachers union in D.C. when Michelle Reed was the superintendent, and those were some of the most fierce battles we've ever seen. Describe for folks how nasty it was between you fighting Michelle Reed when it came to charter schools and changing a culture in D.C.
Well, let me start, Roland, first by saying that it starts with a culture and a philosophical idea. And I was glad to hear folks up here say today, we got to take the politics out of education. Most of the conversation we have is about the system, charter system versus public, traditional school system. That's not education. The conversation needs to be about the quality of education you're getting. As a union representative, I know the talking points that we use on the black community. And I want to get real with you for a minute, because black folks, we got to stop reacting to the buzzwords that people throw at us that they know we're going to jump at. The words like segregation. Let me tell you about segregation. I grew up in the segregated time when I had to ride by a white school to go to a black school because of the law. Segregation. But guess what I got at that all-black school? A quality education that's got me sitting on stage today. So we got...
And you were a math teacher for how long?
30 years I taught math in D.C. public schools. But my point is, we have a tendency to fall for the buzzwords because people who want to push our buttons know that they push it when they start talking about anything that's racial. And then they start pushing our buttons when we start talking about anything about making profit. We use those as unions. Those are the buzzwords that we know how to use you to help us stop charter schools from being implemented.
Now, George, when you say...
Whereas in reality, when I was a union president, and most other unions, the bottom line is charter schools are not organized. We don't get union dues. So when you take our kids and send them to a charter school, you are decreasing the income that I get into my union from public school teachers because it's mathematics. If I got fewer students, I need fewer teachers, and if I got fewer teachers in my traditional public schools, I got less union dues coming into my coffers. But I can't tell you, as a union leader, that I'm really interested about holding on to the teachers because I'm holding on to the money. I got to tell you it's about segregation. I got to tell you it's about white folks coming in to make money about your schools. And so I'm going to get your mind off of talking about what's the quality of education you're getting for your children, but I want to get you caught up talking about who's making money. And these other people are segregating the schools. Well, I got a hell of an education in a segregated black school. So our priority got to be, it's the school educating my children. If you educated my granddaughter, I don't care if you're making money. When I go to Target and I pay them for the clothes I wear, they making money. In the public schools, the person got the food contract, making money. I don't know any black companies that's got textbooks contracts. The textbooks that your children bring home to read the math in, somebody making money. So we need to stop dying on these buzzwords that they throw at black people to make us against something for everything except is my child getting a quality education.
George, you were at a school and this is when you had your aha Damascus Road experience. Tell folks what happened when a young girl said something to you and when you got in your car, you broke down crying.
Well, let me say this, and I'll be honest, I used to drink the Kool-Aid. I'm just telling you. When I was a union president, I drank the Kool-Aid. And I took the political priorities of my union above the priority of educating black kids. I forgot where I came from. I grew up poor in the cotton fields and the tobacco fields of Kinston, North Carolina. I wouldn't have gone to college unless I got what they now call a voucher, and they called it when I went to college a Pell Grant. We give you some money because you're poor, and you can go to any school you want with it. But now we're saying we can't take that same money because it's called a voucher and give it to K-12 students, and they can go to any school they want. I don't get it. But I was drinking the Kool-Aid until one day I went to an elementary school at a day where you talk about professions, right? So I spoke to this third grade class, and they were saying, well, what do you do as a union president? And I said, well, I make sure that your teachers have the kind of resources that they need in order to provide you a great education, and I also make sure that you have the best teachers. When I completed my presentation, this little girl just ran up to me and just out of the blue hugged me. And you know, kids give you real love. They don't play the politics. And so I'm asking her, baby, why do you just hug me like this, a perfect stranger? And she said, because you said you care about us and you make sure we got the best teachers. Well, when I was driving in my car back to the union office, I had an aha moment with myself. And I said, you know what? You lied to that little girl. You don't really care if she got the best teachers, because you just spent $10,000 to put a bad teacher right back in her school in arbitration. And so I had this aha moment and said, that little girl was me when I was in school. I was living in poverty. And if I didn't get a good education, I was never going to get out of it. And that aha moment was the moment that I made the priority. Is what kind of education are these little black boys and little black girls getting? And that became more important to me than trying to maintain a systemic structure of a public school system that wasn't doing a good job educating poor black kids, who many of them, without an education and having the ability to make critical thinking skill decisions about life, they're going to begin to just simply live their life by instinct. And we got too many black kids today living their life by instinct. That's where we get the drugs and the crime, because people will survive. They will survive. And if they don't have an education to help them to survive, they're going to survive by instinct. And that instinct can include taking it from you, taking it from me, or taking it from anyone else. But it's when I saw that little girl who reminded me of me growing up, and I'm sitting there lying to her about the quality of education I'm supporting for her, and knowing that if she didn't get that quality education, she may never get to sit on the same stage I'm sitting on today. That's when I began to change and began to say, choice for our children is more important than me maintaining a political structure of self-interest for people who have other goals in mind other than whether or not they educate poor African-American children. As African-Americans, we got to understand, if it ain't working and you can't fix it, then you got to bring something else in. Right. If we got a bad car that ain't working and someone told you you got to drive it anyway, you can't buy another vehicle, how many of us would accept that? If someone said to you, in America, you can only drive a Pinto, how many of you would say, Well, this is what we're saying to our children when we limit the options for them to just a traditional public school. That if you're in a bad car and you're in a bad school, we sorry. You ain't got no choice. You got to stay there. Is that fair? Or even more than that, is it realistic if we're at the same time saying we want to educate our children? There is an urgency today. I taught school for 30 years in public schools, and I'm a public school supporter. I believe we got to open the options up, but I support public schools too, but I also support schools that work. If it's a charter school and it ain't working, get rid of it. If it's a public school and it ain't working, get rid of it. Our kids need schools that work, and they need more options for those schools. That's where I am.
So Richard, here's the conundrum. 2 years ago, we conducted a survey of African-American parents about the issue of school choice. And I was very selective, being a black network. I hired a black polling company. He got to make the money. And let me say, so here were the results. Before I say the results, though, it was Brilliant Corners Research. Cornell Belcher, y'all seen him on television, one of President Barack Obama's top pollsters. So I'm laying it as the groundwork. He's black, it's his company, he's not a front company, and he was Obama's pollster. So I know how y'all feel about Obama, so you can't get mad at him, because I know how y'all feel about Obama. They specifically polled black parents, and 72% of black parents said they would send their children to charter schools. More than 70% of black parents said they would readily accept a voucher to send their kid to a better school. Why is it that black politicians are standing in the way of what black parents want? Richard.
Well, first of all, I'm not a politician. Let me bag up. We in the right to work state. George has a contract. The people that know me in this room, I do things a little different. My kids are in this school system. I fight the school district on issues. So I'm not having an aha moment at any time. I want to say that, but I can't answer for a politician, black or white, because I'm not a politician. I've never denied anybody anything.
So I ask you, if 70+% of black people, and this is not just our poll, this is consistent, you can do poll after poll, black parents nationwide are saying, this is what I want. Steve Perry, when he opened his school in Hartford, they did not even have a building. No parent even knew what the building looked like, and more than 2,000 were on the waiting list. There are 20,000 parents on the waiting list to get into Eva Moskowitz schools in New York City. Right. But I see black civil rights organizations calling for moratoriums. Yeah. I see black education folks saying, no, no, no. I see black politicians saying, no, no, no. And what is amazing to me, a lot of them do not send their kids to public school. So black leadership is telling black parents, this ain't good for you, but black parents are saying, no, that's not good for my kids. So when will black leadership get out of the way and follow black parents, as opposed to trying to tell them what you don't need when they're saying, I want it?
When they stop being political puppets.
That's true. We can agree on that. Not just even in education. I'm talking about our whole community. A school system is the mirror image of the community that it sits in. So this conversation can go really deep, because the only thing that I am saying, I'm not saying for or against. What I'm saying, the people that's on this panel.
1 second, you say you're not saying for or against what?
For or against, what I'm saying is we're not talking about.
For or against what?
Charter schools or school choice. What I said.
Oh, you've been against it.
Wait a minute. If we're going to have a conversation, we have to have the whole conversation. Because I can remember about 3-4 years ago in Philadelphia what was going on in a charter school where those teachers were working for free because they were siphoning off the money, sending those kids back to the public school. So I've often said there are holes in these laws, and when the union brings it up, it's not that in Alabama, I've said, the situation she gave Pastor Beavers or anybody could have a charter school, and they say the money follows the child. But that money, if that child is sent back to that public school, that money doesn't follow that child. So we have to have the whole conversation.
But here's the deal, though. When you mention holes, I can't tell you how many times I've done the story of a principal at a Detroit public school who had fake receipts and walked away with $1.5 million. Here's the deal. Wherever there's money, there are going to be crooks.
I agree.
And there are public school crooks and charter school crooks. Right. So it's not like, well, at this charter school there was some wrongdoing. You had a cheating scandal in Atlanta.
Yes.
That were not charters, were traditional schools. Yes. So whether or not, at the end of the day, you have to have systems in place to make sure folks not embezzling, whether it's a charter or traditional school. Right. But I'm still going back to the most basic question I have. If black parents are saying, this is what we want, why stand in the way of that and say, how do we give you what you want, but ensure, George's point, is high quality?
But I can't, I'm not standing in the way of anybody.
But hold up, I'm confused now.
You standing in the way.
Because, okay, are you?
You're in the way.
Hold on, let me just be clear, hold on. Let me do this here. So let me go around. Are you for or against charter schools? Are you for or against charter schools? Are you for or against charter schools?
High quality ones that work.
Are you for or against charter schools?
I'm for charter schools that work. For.
Are you for or against charter schools?
Charter schools.
So you are for
high quality, the word.
Well, why are you against us and we ain't even open?
I'm first of all.
You don't even know if we're going to be high quality or low quality.
First of all, I'm not a school board member. I don't have a vote. I'm not a legislator. You ask that question to those legislators. Now, if we're going to go there.
No, hold on, wait, hold on. Again, hold up. I'm trying to be very clear. George, you for or against charter schools?
I'm for charters, and I'm for public, and I'm for anything that's going to educate our children.
Now.
Okay.
You want to jump in, Joe? Go ahead.
So I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, but I do remember your face at a lot of the school board meetings for the School Federation of Teachers, I believe. Right. And you say that you're not a politician.
No.
And I know that, and I appreciate you saying that, but you have to understand that you don't have to be a politician to carry a message or a sentiment. So my first observation of you was that you were very much against charter. You spoke out against school choice, did not care if parents had a choice or not. So my point in saying that to you is you don't have to have the title of politician. If you are an influencer or a person with a voice and you're making kind of willy-nilly conversations about charter without facts, because you just mentioned something about Philadelphia. By the way, I'm from Philadelphia, so I feel like compelled to just address you. And my father was a 30-year school teacher in Philadelphia, mathematician as well. There are good charter schools in Philadelphia, just like there are bad charter schools in Philadelphia. There are good public schools in Philadelphia, just like there are bad public schools in Philadelphia.
So
please just stop making conversation that you do not have factual information to back up.
So here's the deal. So since everybody on this stage is for high quality charters, that's what I heard. Since everybody's for high quality charters, I ain't got to add school on the end. You know what I'm talking about. I ain't talking about charter in your sorority. You know what I'm talking about. So if everybody is for high quality charter schools, how then do we get them that are black run in Birmingham? Anybody can answer.
Well, first thing you were saying is politicians, but I'm an educator. I've been a teacher, principal, and a superintendent. My concern against charter schools, as I said, dealt with the money, and also at one point, the teachers were not going to have to be certified. That has been changed now in the law. There were going to be rules that the charter schools were not going to have to basically comply with, that public schools were going to have to comply with. That has been changed. Well, it is, but at first, the teachers were not going to have to be certified. That has been changed. Even the fact of going through accreditation for someone to come in and monitor, that wasn't going to have to be done at first. But now that that is in law, I feel we're going to have to find a way to make it work for we as black people. We've got to. Again, we always check stuff, so I just need to be clear. I just need to be real clear. Richard, did you say this week on Facebook that you would not support any school board member who supports charter schools?
No, that's not what I said. What I said, we were talking, we getting
No, that's first of all, this is why we ask questions.
Okay. We're getting very...
No, I didn't make a statement. I asked the question. So go ahead.
Because let me explain. You have people that are getting money, that are toting the water, that are running for school board, and I know they're for charter schools, and what I said was, tell the truth. Be man and woman. If you're for charter schools, say it. If you're against it, say it. But that's not what we're doing here. People are hiding their hand, taking money, and not having the full conversation.
So if there's got some little dissension in the ranks, huh? So if there is a school board member who supports charter schools, what you're saying is you wouldn't oppose them just because of that.
No. We actually have school board members that were on the board right now where they're for charter schools.
And you support them?
Yeah, if that's not the total issue.
That's what I'm just asking.
What's going on? No.
So again, how then, if we're talking about high quality charters in Birmingham, how then do we get that going? Because right now, There are 137 districts or boards in this state. 138. So only 4 have agreed, if I'm correct, Yvonne, Doc, only 4 have agreed, Yvette, I'm sorry, only 4 boards have agreed to be charter authorizers. Correct. So 4 out of 138.
Correct.
Right now, how many actual charter schools exist in Alabama?
There's one right now in
One second, hold up. I'm trying to lay down a base level of facts. So, how many charters exist right now in the entire state?
Formally, there's one in Mobile. But there's
one in Mobile?
Yes. But there's STAR that's scheduled to open in 2018. There's SLAM that's scheduled to open in Huntsville in 2018. And then there's another one in 2018.
So that's 4.
Yes.
So by 2018, in the whole state, there'll be 4. Okay. So if black parents are saying this is what we want, well then, how then do we go about getting them in Birmingham that allows for us to do innovation, allows for us to be able to do creative things? And here's the other thing that I think is important. Correct me if I'm wrong. The law says that they got 3 years.
True.
That if they are not meeting a certain level, then that school gets closed down.
Correct.
Now, I take it that there are traditional schools in Birmingham
Correct.
that have been highly, let's just say, inefficient for a decade, but still open.
Correct. But
I guess y'all answered that question.
Correct, but the school board could then determine to turn that school into a conversion school.
What is that?
A conversion school is a school that is failing, and the school board then decides, in order to make it quality, it can convert it into a public charter that's run by that local school board.
Go ahead, Pastor. And then Richard.
When we got ready to do a charter school, they said, why not do a conversion school? But in actuality, that was more so about money than the quality of the school. Because in a conversion school, the money comes it's still funneled the same way that it is in a traditional public school.
And the conversion school, the school board still is over that.
That's correct.
So what you're saying, a charter school, you're over that.
He has a governing board of his own.
So a conversion school is really a school board run charter school versus an external group. Go ahead, I wanted to answer that, go ahead.
A school board run school where everyone in the school, because it's failing, from the principal all the way down, is fired. And you start over with a new administration and staff.
So let me do it, so you want to jump in, go ahead.
The options that we talk about, we have a thing called the innovational waiver. Anybody could apply for the innovational waiver.
Who's anybody? What do you mean anybody?
Parents, anybody. All they have to do is go to the school district and apply for them. I've said that to Pastor.
So a parent can apply for it, but then
they just go through just go meet with the school board, and because I'm gonna give an example. In that Woodlawn feeder pattern, we have chronic failing. They actually came together and formed a win network. They're in the process right now. Now, the test scores is not successful, but in the community, that waiver, a lot of people point to that waiver. Richard Franklin feels that if we want to empower black parents in our black community, which I live in, that's one of the things that we could use to our advantage. That would be something that we control. We write the waiver.
Okay, so this is where I'm confused. Because I started this thing up talking about control and who controls the contracts. So if we're talking about an innovation waiver, that's a choice. If we're talking about a conversion, semi-choice. A charter school, that's choice. You got magnet schools, right?
Yeah, we have magnet schools.
Why can't we have all of them? Why can't we have all of them? So if you want to send your child to a magnet school, great. You got to apply, they get in, great. If it's a charter school that's doing the job, if George wants to create a mathematic academy, and I've been saying this because there's a group, who are the deltas in the room? There are a group of teachers who are deltas in Detroit who open their own charter school. There's a group of deltas in Miami who open their own charter schools. There's a sister over Ivy Preparatory who's an AKA in Atlanta. I have argued to the alphas that I'm sick of all these mentoring programs. We only help in 10, 15, 20. I told the alphas I want to see 50 alpha academies in the next 5 years. So now all of a sudden we are actually controlling the destiny of our children. So what will it take to actually get folks to stop fighting it here? Because all I've heard since I announced we were coming here was, oh no, they don't want it, folks upset, they mad. I mean, I've heard all of that. And so it's interesting what I hear in here, which is a little different. And so how do we make it happen?
You gotta move the red tape of politicians. Pastor B, this is where when we talk about rhetoric, I'm not against him, the community. I didn't write the law. In that law, if people read the law, there are things that they say you have to do. That's part of the problem. The same thing that they're putting.
You said in law you have to do. But the state commission approved his school.
When it went to the commission, now, I don't know anything about an application changing, but when it went to the commission, they said he had everything that was needed.
Right.
The financial aspect, the design aspect, and the operations aspect. But the question you're asking, how do you get one started? Well, the State Board of Education now has an office at the State Department, charter schools. People can get an application from there. There are people who will help them work through the process. After the application is completed, if, say, for example, it's in Birmingham, Birmingham is the authorizer. They can try to get the application authorized by Birmingham. If Birmingham does not authorize it, it then can go to the Charter School Commission. Those are the steps. And from there, you have your building.
Right.
You have your building. The finances are in line. You have your board. There's your charter school. At one point, when the movement first began, there were no people to help anyone write an application. But the state board now has an office of charter schools because it's law. You know, when it first had come out, there were some board members who did not want to even have a charter school commission. Mm-hmm. And we were threatened by legislatures that if we didn't vote on a commission, we were going to jail. There still were people who didn't vote on it, but I did because it's law. I mean, how can we tell other people what to do when we don't follow the law ourselves?
George.
I want to go back to your question for a moment, Roland, and say this. You said, how can we get past it? I think, number one, if I've heard, now we have 6 black folks on this stage, and everybody said they support high-quality charter schools. The next thing we got to do, though, is to now move past fighting the concept. See, we've gotten stuck on fighting the concept of charter schools. Well, if we are now past that, where we're saying, okay, we all agree that the concept of charter schools is good, so let's stop talking about whether or not the concept is good, and now let's start addressing how do we ensure that the implementation of charter schools lead to high quality, which everybody says we want high quality charter schools. But as long as we continue fighting the battle of the concept, we'll never get to working together to begin to develop a good implementation of the concept where we can all say we got high quality charter schools. So I would say the people up here who agree that we need to have the concept, get together and talk about, now how do we iron out the differences, the impact of saying the money leaves the public schools or whatever. How do we work through all of that to make sure that we end up with high quality charter schools that everybody say we can support? Let's take our discussion to that when we leave here, rather than still talk about, well, this is a red thing that we fight the concept when we all agree the concept is good. So let's put some meat on the bones and develop the concept.
So let me do this here before I go to what I'm about to do next. How many people in this room, by a show of hands, you want to see charters in Birmingham? How many of you don't want charters in Birmingham? Okay. Now I'm gonna come to folks for questions a little bit later. George talked about, we talked about high performing. Now I want to show you a high performing charter school in Memphis. Roll the video, please. Kill the lights. I think is critically important is to highlight the individuals, African Americans, who are actually running charter schools. Their voices are critical when it comes to this particular movement, and so therefore we wanted to focus on them, and so we decided to focus on these school choice all-stars, individuals who are making a huge difference by running schools, inspiring our children, strengthening our communities, and ensuring our future through high-quality education.
It's a long tradition that goes back to just after the Civil War, when the first black schools for freed slaves by freed slaves were established. And today, African American educators and entrepreneurs are starting and running some of the nation's best public charter schools. School Choice All-Stars celebrates these men and women who are literally changing the course of our history and showing the rest of the world how it's done.
We talked about starting our first note on the first space.
Today's School Choice All-Star is Yetta Lewis, co-founder and chief executive of Gestalt Community Schools, a charter management organization in Memphis and serving more than 2,000 students in grades K through 12.
What we were trying to solve is to create the next generation that could give back to the community.
My name is Carla Salazar, and I am a Power Center Academy High School alumni, and I attend Christian Brothers University, class of 2020. So when I was in a traditional public school, I think that this is very emotional for me because I think Power Center Academy gave me hope. And I started to see the leader in me, and I could run clubs and I could do community service, I can help out. Then I thought, maybe I can get to be someone, maybe I can make an impact.
We have students that are graduating, 100% graduation rate, 100% acceptance in college. But we also measure the community service, what they give back to their community.
Now I'm an intern at Gestalt, one of the Gestalt Community Schools, Nexus STEM Academy. I love working with them. Right now we're holding a STEM camp for elementary school kids, and they're just excited to learn and want to grow and want to be someone like you. And I'm just like, you want to be like me? Why do you want to be like me? And she's like, and they're like, because you just make an impact in me. And I'm just like, well, thank you. You know, that's what our teachers made an impact in us, so that's what we're just trying to pass along.
We serve 100% black and brown students. Over 75% of our students are economically disadvantaged. And we believe the secret sauce is that it is a community effort. You know, it's a cliche that it takes a village, but we really are making that happen, that Gestalt is a village, that the parents' voice matters, the scholars' voice matters.
My name is Kennedy Tuggle. I'm a graduate from Power Center Academy High School. I attend Rhodes College. Being in a low-income community, you don't expect your teachers to care for you mentally, financially, or just caring for you as, you know, as a human being. And that's what the Gestalt teachers did. They made sure I was mentally okay to learn, and that was the first step in me wanting to learn myself. If I couldn't attend a field trip, my teacher got it. And my teachers this was their first year in teaching. I'm like, how can you provide this for me and this is your first year out in the world yourself? And so just knowing that they care and had patience to deal with the low-income students and our problems, it was amazing.
I have many students that have defied the odds. One gentleman who has graduated from our network, he came here as a 6th grader, graduated about a year ago, and he came with his grandmother in hand, forcing him to come to school. I don't want to wear these uniforms. I don't want to come to school. He would actually come to school and run out the back door to escape. But his grandmother wanted something better for him. And so she chose our school to give him a fresh start. He was a bright child, but what happened to him that first year was educators, school leaders not giving up on him. You run out the door, we're running behind you. He did well and stayed in school. He went from not wanting to come to school to coming to school and meeting the principal in the parking lot as he unlocks the door. He graduated last year from our school, had a full scholarship to college. And when he came to us, he said, I don't know if I want to go to college. We don't force that issue, although every child we prepare for college. We don't force that issue, but he is in college doing well, away from home, first generation college student for the family. So he has that ability to change the trajectory of his family and his own life.
All successful charter schools have strong community roots, but for Gestalt, the community is front and center.
Gestalt Community Schools is, by its name, a school that is anchored in the community. When we opened our new school building, Power Center Academy Middle, it was designed by the community. So our families really own the building. It's not the charter dictating what should be in your community. It's the community members telling us what they need. And we believe we're servants, giving those resources and services back to the community. We could have built the auditorium and gymnasium in the school, which means you have to go through layers to have access. This is a separate building that during the day the school uses for its auditorium and performances, and after school the community has access to it for also community programming, and then in the event of a storm, an actual shelter for the community. Through partnerships, we have a Habitat for Humanity. They built 9 homes, and every single home is a family within our network. Because remember, for Gestalt, school and community, it goes hand in hand. You can't do one without the other. And what we realized was housing was an issue for our families. 95% of our students are right from the immediate community. They can walk to school, right? Our schools are in the top 5% in the state, and while waiting list is long for our schools, we serve our immediate community.
I have a younger child who cannot wait to be a part of the Gestalt Community School family. He goes to a traditional school currently, and he doesn't seem to be as challenged as much at his school as he sees the children challenged at Gestalt Community Schools. I'm very active there at the school, and so my son has a lot of opportunities to see how the children perform in the classroom. So he's so thrilled about when he's able to get to the 6th grade and attend a Gestalt Community School.
When you know a child and form an authentic relationship with their parents, and you know them well enough to know that I can't call on him right now, he's processing in a different way. Or last night there was a difficult night at the home. It impacts how you educate a child. It impacts how they can access the educational environment. And when you have those pieces in place, what we found out, more and more when students feel comfortable with the adults in the class, they start to feel comfortable with showing you their areas of challenge, and you can better serve them. So they're no longer shy about that. And then on the other side of that, they're able to show you what inspires them. And it takes that compassionate educator that can pull out the passion from an individual child just by knowing them.
My name is Erica Eason, and this is my son, Edward Eason. Edward has autism. He has a severe sound sensitivity. He can hear it all, from the click of cameras, the hum of the lights. So we utilize the headphones to make it easy for him to navigate in the rest of the world. In Gestalt, they had a self-contained classroom. It was a very small student-to-teacher ratio. It was perfect. It allowed him to work with other children, to help and be helped by his peers. They helped Edward to be able to communicate that this is what he wanted, to be able to interact with someone so he wouldn't be so alone. And they've just been wonderful in providing the necessary therapies and the intense therapies that he probably wouldn't get in any other school system. All the teachers, the principals, everyone did their best. did their best to make sure that Edward was safe in an environment where he could learn, where he could thrive and grow. So Gestalt played an excellent and huge role in the growth and progress of my son.
Yenna Lewis and Gestalt Community Schools of Memphis, Tennessee are School Choice All-Stars, inspiring our children, strengthening our communities, ensuring our future with high-quality education. I'm Roland Martin.
Give it up for Gestalt. All right, so now is our question and answer time. So our panelists will stay there. And so we've got a couple of folks holding the microphones, Corey and Amber. And so here are the rules. Corey and Amber are holding the microphones. You do not need to touch the microphone. Keep your hands in your pockets. If you reach for the microphone, Corey and Amber are authorized to smack you on your hand with the microphone. We want questions, not sermons. If it's a comment, it needs to be a tight and right comment. And let's be clear, if you go long, I will pretend you are Paula White and will shut you down. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I advise you to go online, because I guarantee you she does. All right, so who has questions? Questions? All right, so we'll start. Go ahead.
What is the real holdup for Star Academy?
Well, we're in a battle right now. Of course, everybody knows that the Birmingham City Board of Education is suing the state commission who approved us. And so we really don't know how that's going to turn out at this particular moment in time, but we're moving forward. So we're open in 2018.
I want to hear a shadow person ask a question.
Just like the video, we actually have a school just like that right here in Birmingham, in Fairfield, Alabama, called Restoration Academy. And there was a pastor, an African-American pastor by the name of Anthony Gordon, that actually, after doing the funeral of young men who were dying as a result of gangs and drug violence, started a school there in the East Lake community. Since that time, that's been almost 30 years now, and we've been very fortunate for the past 11 years, all of our graduates being accepted into college, and even for the past 3 years now, all of our students that have taken the AP Calculus exam being scoring a perfect score of 5. So I just really want to commend you, but I really also want to bring up the point about relationships. And we cannot just limit this to just black people. Let's be honest, the resources that are available are a lot from over the mountain. And you mentioned Church of the Highlands, and I know that's one of the hugest churches, and it sounds like that's for you a big roadblock in allowing him to support, because he has a base that wants to financially support him. And I just don't want us to lose the opportunity here to help our children thrive. And that's a key word there that was mentioned in the video, to thrive by not wanting to develop relationships with others.
Philip, I want you to speak to that, because look, you run a school.
Right.
And so if we're talking about folks who want to launch charter schools, what must they be prepared for?
You have to work with all the community. We have corporate partners here in the city to help fund some of our students. We also have various individuals we target that do a sponsorship for kids. For example, they might pay $100 a month for a child to go to school, and all those people are not black. Some of them are white, and they're glad to help. So I believe that you have to use everything in order to make your situation work. And that's something we've done. And fortunately, since we're a private school, we hadn't had the roadblock that Pastor Beavers had. We thought about doing a charter school a couple of years ago, but we saw all the conflict, and my board said, well, forget it. But we're kind of encouraged tonight to maybe try again, but I feel your pain, Pastor.
Question.
You asked the question, what really is the problem? We really have a problem in the state of Alabama. The state of Alabama is not like no other state I've been to. It's like a whole new world by itself, because they had a 1901 Constitution that is not going to let us go anywhere. They keep that noose around our neck. That's what they do. My child went to JCCEO Head Start. where she got a good start. Then she went over to a school in the neighborhood, was a failing school. She was in kindergarten. They talked about that kindergarten so bad, but they outscored any class in that kindergarten area. Then she went to a Magnum school. Then she got to the Magnum school. She was being bullied by grown folks over there. So we have problems in the whole state. We have problems in the city. I want my child to go to a good school. I want the best for my child. But we have too many roadblocks here stopping it. The politicians, the white people, where y'all saying people not like us. Let's just say it. The white people, the politicians, they are all sold. And our politicians sold, they sold. That's the problem we have in here. Thank you.
All right, question over here.
Okay, I have a comment to the gentleman that said we can't exclude others. I'm a realtor. I work Jefferson, Shelby, St. Clair, Blount, Walker counties. Nobody else is having this conversation but us, and we need to have this conversation. Over the Mountain is not having the same problem that we're having. They have these conversations to build a 9th grade campus out of their pockets because the schools are overcrowded for them, because everybody's coming to Hoover, everybody's coming wherever. Those parents, there's never a second question or a second ask when the school board comes to them and says, we need this for our kids. We're not doing that. Our school board is not reaching out to us, and I'm sick of the mess that we're hearing online, on the news. I don't even have kids, and I'm a classroom parent at Southampton Elementary School. I moved my nieces to Hoover to get a good education and help my sister pay rent. We should not have to do that. If we're willing to do those things, we should be willing to pay for our children to have a good education. I watch people come here and spend $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 for houses and send their children to private school. We should have the same opportunity for our children.
Yvette, I want to ask you this here. So and I'm going to the next, I'm coming to questions on the floor, just hold tight. So the state does, because I know this is the case in a lot of other states. So when it comes to charter school, are you allowed or not allowed to use any of the funds for construction? Do you have to raise that money yourself?
Now, at this point, I was told today, the state board has applied for a grant. Hopefully, if it's funded, there will be monies to help. But at this point, we just don't have the money.
And the reason I'm saying that, folks, is because that's one of the things that, again, the misconceptions. I hear people all around the country say, see, they took that money and they built this elaborate charter schools. Right. In most states, yes, the charter schools cannot use any of the money that comes from the student tuition for construction.
Correct.
So one of the reasons why you have to go out and raise money, to your point, from other sources, because that's how you have to construct a school. I was talking to Steve Perry about the same thing. He said, Roland, he said, when I was at the school district, they built a new $100 million school that was failing the first day it opened. He said, I'm in a storefront, and I got 2,000 to 4,000 people on a waiting list. And so just understand, when we're talking about you built, wanting to do a charter school, this is where those dollars are important, those resources, which is one of the reasons why we also align and talk with churches, because we have folks who already have land, already have those resources lined up. That was one of the things there. Let's deal with the question over here.
Okay, my question is pretty much for anybody on the panel. It's already evident that people are moving outside of the city because no one's giving them the options that they want. So the option that they're taking is to move out of the city. And I, for one, know that in terms of progression, even a generation of progression, these communities outside of the city are growing. And so the kids are going out, getting their education, and they're living in those other communities and not in the city. Okay. My question is, why is it that we're pretending that something as easy or simple to approve as a charter school is such a big issue for us when it seems to be doing well in some areas?
Who wants that? Who wants it?
Okay. Well, first of all, when you say in other areas, as I heard the realtor back there say, when there was the movement against charter schools, my friends in Mountain Brook and Hoover and Homewood said, we're not going to have charter schools. But they didn't want them because the school's already doing well. We've got to find some alternatives, and I appreciate the fact, not just charters, but magnets, things that are different for our children, things that work, as you said on the end. So as far as it being an issue for me, now being on the state board 8 years, it's not an issue anymore because the things I had problems with have been resolved. We've just got to get forward now and get people who are really committed to bringing about the positive and the quality charter schools.
Question?
Yes, I'm a Alabama STEM school organizer and director. It appears that the school board seems to be the common denominator in a lot of the issues that we're facing. Number one, I really think school board members should be appointed and not elected anymore. Secondly, I truly believe that when it comes to the charter school system, we should be provided with more information to involve collaboration, show relationship from the school board itself. Not a lot of objections, but show some collaboration by providing parents, providing people that want to start charter schools with information that you have, because a lot of this information is not readily available.
Question?
Yes, sir. My question is, here in the Bessemer area, we are about 90%. We are a church organization in Bessemer. We're about 85 to 90% finished with being in a position to submit our application to the state. And I'm here just to question and find out how can we utilize this forum as a way to help us help us.
Gotcha. I'm gonna answer that question later. I got that one. Question right here.
State Representative Wanda Lynn Gavan, and first of all, let me say to Roland Martin, thank you for being here. I represent this district. But I say the lone elected official here in the audience, I've heard a lot about politicians and elected officials, and I tend to agree with Dr. Richardson. But let me simply say to you all, I can speak for the majority of the African-American delegation for Jefferson County, that we stand in support of Pastor Beavers because he is an African-American man here in the city of Birmingham trying to make a difference. But however, we did have a problem with the charter school bill. We had a problem with the bill because of how it was written. What you see here in the legislation, we filibustered to make it a better bill. So if it happened to pass, we would have the key essential things that were needed to have educators who would teach our kids that would have the certifications. But let me simply say, I rise tonight because I agree with the gentleman on that end. We have to have quality education. But I cannot sit here any longer to put everything on the Birmingham public school systems, because education begins when the child comes out of the womb. Education begins at the kitchen table. Education begins when we're at the football fields, when our children are running up and down the football fields, when we're cheering for them on the football fields. We should be at home teaching math and science and social studies and English. So charter schools will not fix all of our problems, but it could possibly be a solution for some of those who choose it. But we have over 24,000 students here in the Birmingham public school system. So only a few will go to charter schools. But whatever I can do to support Pastor Beavers, I respect him. I've supported him all along, and I will continue to support him. But I also stand, and I will say this as I take my seat, I also stand to challenge each and every one of you that we also must continue to come up with a solution to fight for all of those other students who may not have the opportunity or the choice to go to the STARS program. Thank you.
But George, she talked about a few will go right down Washington, D.C., where there was and you were there, a vigorous fight. 55% of all kids in D.C. goes to traditional schools. 45% goes to charters. The bottom line is both can coexist.
They can, and I can be honest with you. When they started them, I was fighting the upstart of charter schools. It was more a political fight, but I think D.C. is a role model in terms of how public schools and charter schools can coexist.
And the largest CMO, charter management operator in D.C. is black run.
Black run. And I can't
Donald
stress,
Hintz.
I can't stress that enough, is that charter schools and choice can be a source of black economic empowerment. It's at the same time that we are talking about creating these high-quality schools, let's let some black folks, teachers, right? Charter schools offer, Marva Collins, that's one of my heroes.
Right.
Marva Collins.
Now, who remembers Marva Collins? All right, okay, there you go. All right.
Marva Collins was a teacher who said, I can do it better, and just stepped out there and did it. We got a lot of teachers all around this country who, if they get an opportunity to start a charter school, could start a charter school and do it better. So I'm saying, but it also can be a form of economic empowerment for the African American community, because public education for so long has been a source of financial empowerment for a lot of white folks who own the books, who own the food supply chains, who own a lot of the consultancy firms that come in. And so we've been paying folks all along with public dollars. So that's not different. So why can't we also take advantage of an opportunity that some black folks can become entrepreneurs while we do something good and great, and that's educate black children. But DC is a great model. Our public school system is growing, and it has improved at the same rate pretty much of our charter school system.
And would you say those charter schools put pressure on the district to have to get better?
I can say that too, that competition does make a difference. And let me just say, I support public schools, but after teaching for 30 years, I also know that public schools sometimes become lackadaisical about the quality, because you know you're going to get that same budget the next year, and you're going to get the students, and you don't have that urge sometimes to be the best. Competition can cause you to have to step your game up and be a little better than you had to be.
So basically, you know, you dating somebody and everything is going easy like Sunday morning, and then somebody else started flirting with you and they get jealous, you got to step your game up.
Competition can make a little difference.
Competition will change some of the things. Some of y'all having some having some flashbacks right now.
Yeah. One of the things that I used to tell my union colleagues when we were fighting public schools, once I had my aha moment, is that, look, I got the best way possible that we can stop charter school growth. Make the public schools so great that you got lines of parents standing there to get their child in a public school, and you won't have to worry about a charter. But until then, they're going to be here.
Great point. Got a question over here.
Thank you, Roland. I would like to say I was one of those who came in dead set against the concept of charter schools as it had been presented, but based on some of the information that's been provided by the state school board representative, I can see where there is a possibility for coexistence. One of the things Pastor Beaver said earlier was true in a sense that, yes, Birmingham has gone through several superintendents, but the school board has stayed the same. But the caveat to that is that the school board didn't stay the same because of its own doing. Birmingham has an elected school board. So the reason the school board has not changed is because the people have not stepped up to vote.
There you go.
Now, here we are. We just had an election here where we had the mayor, the city council, and school board on one election, and less than 40% of the total people turned out to vote. So that's where, in a sense, where the problem lies. Now, one last thing is with the representative and with the realtor earlier, their points are valid. Those 2 points are very valid because in the other communities, in the Mountain Brook and Hoover communities, Vestavia, they're not having this conversation because the parents have stepped up to do what needs to be done in those communities. So it doesn't matter if you have charter or anything else. If the parents and the community don't step up to the plate, it's still going to fail.
I'm going to take a question right here. I'm taking 5 more questions. I got you, baby. I got you. Put your hand down. I got one here. I got one here. I got one there. I'm going to take 2 over here. So, Amber, pick your 2 over here. I got the 3 here. So I got a question right here. Go ahead.
First of all, let me say good evening to everyone. I am totally against charter school because, first of all, that once a child enters into the charter school and that child running some kind of difficult and get kicked out, they goes back to the public school, but none of the funds goes back to the public school.
One second. One, you're already projecting on a school that doesn't exist. Now, he controls the curriculum. He can decide whether that happens. So you're making an assumption based on what somebody else is doing. The point I'm trying to make here is forget how other people have done it. You get to do it differently. So as opposed to if you have discipline issues and they go back, no, what we have to do is say to Pastor Beavers, are you going to have a system that when there's a discipline issue, you're not sending a child back? You're making an assumption based upon what somebody else is doing somewhere else and not what's happening here.
That's the only thing you can base it, but let me go ahead on and proceed
go
with
ahead.
the conversation. The second thing is that the state of Alabama only select those school systems that had great Title I money, so they can utilize that money. The third thing is, I had an opportunity.
Stop. Hold on. No. 1 second. You just said they only selected Title I money. Is that true? Please give it a microphone.
No, because the state board did not select the school districts. What do you mean, in reference to the failing schools?
That's correct. That's correct. But my point I'm saying is that why once the the charter school came about in the city of Birmingham, we had very little black participation. Most of the participation was outside force. Now let me say this.
No. Stop. What does that mean? When you say we had little black participation, in what?
In the school system, in terms of
how many black people on your school board?
Well,
no.
Let me share.
No. Hold on. We have how many board members are there in Birmingham?
We have a total of 9.
9. How many of them are black?
We have all of them. 8 is black.
Okay, so if 8 of the 9 are black, how is there little black participation?
If you allow me to present myself, I would.
No. I'm asking a series of questions so I can be clear. If follow me here. Okay. Hold on 1 second. If I hear there's little black participation, what that sounds like is in a city that's 75% black, is 8 white people on a school board and 1 black person. But there are 9 people on the board, 8 of them black. Hold on.
One thing you got to understand is that there is some outside force that's forcing them school board to make those decisions that they are making.
Hold up. Time out. There are outside forces making decisions. He just said, who elects the board? So I'm just trying to understand that if there are elected officials elected by people in the city, and then we say there are outside forces, so now here's my point. So you actually just destroy your charter argument, because if there are outside forces controlling the school board, then if I have my own charter school, I don't answer to the school board. So if there are 40 schools in Birmingham and we create 10 charter schools, which represents 25% of all schools, and we control the 10, who we answering to? Us. So why are we whining about some outside forces when we can create the school and run it ourselves?
let me see. You are an outsider.
No, I'm not.
You don't understand.
I'm a black man.
Inside.
I'm a black.
That has nothing to do with because you are an outsider. Matter of fact, I was in Montgomery when the bill was written. I was down. I am a licensed lobbyist. Okay, I was down there when the bill was written.
Is he from here? Is he preaching to people from here? Has he applied for a school? In the conversation. He's from here. You're telling me I'm not applying for a school, but I'm still trying to understand if he has applied for a school that he is controlling, that he is running, how are the outside people determining the deal? Go ahead and answer.
Let me make this my final statement.
Yes, you might want to make your final statement. That's the best thing I heard in the last 3 minutes.
Okay, my final statement. Let me be perfectly clear. I am totally against charter school. I think that we can take the public school system and get parental involvement with the community, PTA and PTO, and these are the kind of things that we can build a relationship with our own school. And because again, when I said earlier is that when a student get kicked out of school, that money do not come back to the public school system.
And let me say again, there's only one charter in the entire state, so you are making an assumption on something that doesn't even exist in Alabama. Next question.
That's Livingston. That's where I'm from.
I got you, brother.
West Alabama. That's where I'm from.
I got you. Next question.
Yes, I was wondering if you're familiar with Dr.
Hold the mic closer, please.
If you're familiar with Dr. Kelly Gakuchin, I want to say, was the superintendent, wasn't here a whole year before she was removed. And then now they got a school in Gardendale, which they're allowed to pull out from the system and go out on their own. And they don't want to allow a charter school. So who funds the school for the Gardendale system?
Go ahead.
Jefferson County funds it, sir. Jefferson County funds it.
All right. Question right here. And I got a question here and the final question in the back here. Come on. I got the two. I told y'all 2 over there and 3 over here. I got 2 over there. Come on, go ahead.
First of all, please, somebody tell the truth on this panel. Please. Charter schools are public schools. I'm from here. If my child is in JO and I take my child out of JO and put my child in Woodlawn, that money that the state allows is not going to stay at JO. Charter schools are a public school. The same thing happens. I have 5 children, and I have fought the school board numerous of times. I testified in Montgomery, and my black politician stood at the mic and told me if they have charter schools, they only gonna help a few. And you know what I told him? If they had charter schools in the state of Alabama, first of all, they should have been had them. That's the first thing. Second of all, if they only help one single child, and that was your child, I wonder would you be against it then? I wonder would you be, why would you stand against choice? People choose to have homeschool. They choose to have private school. My baby, my 13-year-old, you see this? I voted. That's why our school board is like it is, because we don't get out and vote. But we complain because we got to live with the residuals, because what we are not doing. I took my 13-year-old with me to see me do this. I've been doing this since I was 18. I'm 51. And I do it every single time because somebody had to fight for me to be able to go in there and get one of these.
Gotcha.
And I keep every last one of them. That's our problem. So charter schools is a choice. And it's a choice. Why would I want my child to go to a school that's failing? And it's mighty funny that everybody that's for public schools, the traditional public school, why that school can stay open 20, 30, 40, 50 years. But charter school can't do that. They can't, if they don't prove themselves, they either have to put up or shut up. And the same thing need to be with the Birmingham school system.
All right. Right here. Stand up, stand up. The question. All right, I'm going to take this question here, then I'm going to go here, and then the brother in the blue back here, and then we're going to close it out.
Okay. Okay, I have a question for the school board member, but I first want to say I'm a founder of a local nonprofit, and we help with tutoring and mentoring.
Okay, hold up, baby. Hold, let me help you out.
I'm sorry.
Hold on. Never ever say I'm the founder of a local nonprofit if you don't name it. What is it?
Intentional learning for the youth community. I'm sorry.
There you go. Always give the name, and all as branding. Also, always give the website.
ILYCalabama.org.
Okay, slow that down. Okay, what I'm saying is, somebody in the room could be helping you. Never pass up a good opportunity. What's your website again? Slow it down.
It's ILYCalabama.org.
ILYCalabama.org.
Yes, sir.
Go right ahead.
Okay, so my question is really for the school board member, but I also want to state, Roland, because I know you're not from here, that last year, okay, it was 13 failing schools on the Department of Education's failing list. It's 20 this year, right? So with that being said, there are available government grants for the local schools as well as local nonprofits to help out with what's going on. The charter schools are created because there is obviously a need in the community. That's the root of the whole situation.
Right.
So with that being said, I just want to understand, like, how is there not enough funding available when the government offers like millions of dollars for those schools, for our local schools in collaboration, and also for individual school boards?
Okay, are you thinking I'm with Birmingham Board?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, no, I'm with the state board. And when I talk about funding, the state school board basically funds schools based upon ad valorem taxes, property taxes. So all school districts get state money, and they also get federal monies.
Right.
I can't address locally for Birmingham. I'm sorry.
All right, question right here.
Okay, I just have a comment. I'm one of those parents that took my baby over the mountain, because when we moved here in 2005, I guess I'm an outsider, but I researched the schools, and I did want to move in the city of Birmingham, but your schools were failing. And I was not going to put my daughter Nakira through that. So yes, she went to Spain Park, and yes, they have state-of-the-art. Yes, they are A and B schools. So why should I come down here when you all have not improved? And what I mean by that is, several years after we moved here, you all were taken over by the state. Then, after you got off, a couple more years after that, you were threatened to be taken over by the state again. So that's not a process that I want to take my child through.
All right. I got the final comment or question over here. Go ahead.
Yes. To the people on the panel and to everybody in the audience. Yeah. First of all, I'm going to address the men that's in this room. Because as a black man and a father, I think we black men done dropped the ball for our children. We're relying on these women. Pardon me, don't disrespect now. We're relying on women to run the show. Black men, stand up. I'm just a common man. I have 3 sons. One I did raise. In raising this young man, I had to do some stuff. Charter schools and all of that is okay. I got no problem with that. All the politics, I don't know about all that stuff. I know what I had to do. I lived in Ensley at the time, but I wanted my son to have a good education.
Mm-hmm.
And he was going to either go to Council Elementary and then J.O. for high school. But I used my brother's address because he lived on the south side in the medical area. And I got him into Epic. Well, first of all, I got him into
we got you.
The school. But anyhow, it was a multiracial school because I felt like he needed that for the future. Okay? My brother had already put his children through that school, Glen Irish. And I figured, okay, he's gonna learn more if he got an education where there's multicultural. You know, and there was Mexicans, there was Latinos, there
We got
were
you. Multicultural,
Asians,
we got it.
all of that. Okay. All right. But
About 30 more seconds.
bottom line, he's a graduate of Auburn University with an engineering degree. And he has a family, and he lives in an affluent neighborhood, and he did good. Men, we got to step it up. Yeah, we can't leave it to the women.
All right.
Yeah.
I appreciate
charter
it, Doc.
schools ain't nothing wrong with it. But, you know, why can't we start our own charter schools? Yeah.
And that's
There's
why
enough
we,
money in this place
and,
right
and that's
now
exactly
to
why we're
start
here.
your own, you know, if you
Final
really want to
comments.
start something.
Final comments. Pastor Beaver, I'm gonna start with you.
Yeah, we have tossed around the word black, and I believe that school choice is the black choice. However, we have to stop trusting people just because they are black. Anytime you blaze a trail, there are going to be some wounds that you take that other people don't take. And you do it knowing that you're going to take those wounds and take those hits, but hopefully it creates an easier path for somebody else who's coming behind you. But I want to say to everybody, some of my greatest wounds that I've experienced in doing what we're doing and blazing this trail did not come from white people. Some of my greatest wounds came from those who I allowed to get close to me, who look just like me.
Jewel, go ahead.
Sure. I just would like to say I hope that everyone will leave more enlightened tonight and that you will be the mouthpiece and the voice for positive communication and dialogue with others about charter schools, school choice, because it's absolutely positively needed, especially in the Birmingham area where we want to grow our economy. Like the young lady said, she moved here. She didn't choose to stay in Birmingham because of that. That economic dollars that she had could have been added to our community. And that's ultimately what we want to do, is grow our community and give our kids the best.
Philip?
It's great that we had a chance to have an open dialogue tonight about school choice. But one thing we need to remember, nobody really likes change. People are scared of change. I hear sometimes that the only person that likes change is the baby with a dirty diaper. So we've got to realize and embrace change. And also these school options as far as choice, let's be open-minded with it, with charter, private, homeschool, magnet, public. Let's support everything. If we have a different mindset as far as change, we'll be better as a people.
Richard?
I want everybody to remember one thing, that probably right now in our city, there's somebody that's gotten killed. And we may be sitting up here as panel people, but the people that live here, that's another discussion that we have to have. It's a lot deeper. We're sitting here debating about school choice, but we have some community choice we need to really talk about. I want to leave you with this thought, and it was a question that was asked and I had to answer. The way our state law reads when it comes to funding, they take $20 million from Birmingham City Schools because you have rural areas in the state that they don't have a tax base, they can't fund it. So if we want to fight for something, whether it's charter or whatever, they're cheating the taxpayers of the city of Birmingham because we get more tax money than those rural areas. So we're paying for other people's education, but then our kids are going without. Whether you open up a charter school or not, we still gonna suffer because they're taking our money. That's something that we really don't talk about. If you read state law, do that. But we have to come together in this conversation because there are too many murders going on and teen pregnancy that's going on.
Yvette?
Yes, I would just like to thank you for this forum, and I think it has been very enlightening for people to know that there is a department now at the State Department that's just for charter schools. And I agree with you. We need not just charters, we need, the more information on magnets, vouchers, and everything, and we need to just work together. And I think ultimately at the end of the day, we need to really realize that what differences are we making in children's lives? I ran for the school board to make a difference. And I feel there's some things that I've done, but there are many more things that I need to do. But I just want to thank you for this forum because I think it's opened up. You've asked how do people get started. I'll give the number to Sheila so we can get it out so they can call the person at the State Department to get assistance in beginning an application.
George?
I, first of all, would just like to say I really appreciate the fact that you had this gathering. But I'd like to leave everybody with a word that I think is so important here, and that's unity. That while I see all of us as black people on stage, it doesn't mean that we are necessarily unified in our effort. We can overcome this. We can create high-quality schools for our children, and it's essential that we do that, especially with our young black boys. The pipeline from school to prison is alive and well, and education is the one thing that can alter that pipeline. But we got to be able to listen to each other. And if we take all of the politics, just take everything off the table but the meat, and the meat is the children. In every decision that you make, look at the meat first and then say, is this good for the children? And then be willing to sacrifice your own self-interest and opinions for the children, and we can do this. As black people, folks, there is nothing we cannot overcome. We overcame slavery. We overcame slavery. Don't tell me we can't overcome a poor education system. Don't focus so much on what is. Let's focus on what can be and make it happen.
Give it up as our panelists exit the stage. Give it up our panelists, please. And we're almost done. Come on. Y'all can do better than that. There we go. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. Appreciate it. So how many of you have heard of the KIPP schools? How many of you have ever heard of Harriet Ball? The co-founder of KIPP was a teacher in a traditional school. And one day, he heard this huge commotion across the hall. And he said, what is going on? And he went across the hall to figure out what was happening. And what he saw Harriet Ball using rap and rhythm to teach the kids math, English, all their lessons. A black teacher is the basis of KIPP's entire educational system. We talk about KIPP, but their educational model is based on a sister who passed away a couple of years ago of a heart attack. Their entire education system is based on how she taught. George talked about Marva Collins. How many folks remember seeing Cicely Tyson portray Marva Collins in that CBS movie? Marva Collins was a teacher in the Chicago public school system who used the Socratic teaching method, and she was able to take a child at the beginning of a semester who could not read and would have that child reading Shakespeare by the second semester. She started her own school, Westside Preparatory. Of course, she eventually retired. Her daughter took the school over. Because Marva Collins did not want them taking government funds, they struggled, the economy began to tank, and they couldn't stay open. And it was about a month or so after the school shut down, her daughter took her own life. When you start thinking about some of the most innovative people in education, they are black teachers. But this is not just in the 21st century. There's a book everybody in this room should read, and you should write this down. It is called The Education of Blacks in the South, 1860 to 1935, by James D. Anderson. It took him 10 years to do the research for this book. And he detailed how during slavery, there were schools that were open that were secret. He quotes a woman who said she was responsible for more slaves being killed than any plantation owner because she was teaching them how to read. When the Civil War ended, and the white abolitionists, and they came from the North, and they thought, okay, we're going to go down south to teach these poor black people how to read. They showed up in the months after the Civil War, and 500 schools had already been opened. James D. Anderson, in his book, also breaks down that black people created collective bargaining. In his book, he has the research where African Americans who were freed slaves, the plantation owners needed workers to work the land, and it was freed slaves who said, we will only work the land as sharecroppers if you build a school on the plantation. How many of you have met black folks that might be in your family who had 10 and 12 and 15 and 16 kids, and all of them graduated from college? And they had parents who didn't even have 8th grade education, who never made more than $20,000, but they said, I don't care what you do, your behind will get an education. We are here because we had black folks who said, by any means necessary, you are going to get an education. So when did it become optional for black America? This morning I spoke at the Truancy Summit. And I told them there, I said, I mean no disrespect, I looked at your program, that's great. How are you going to have a Truancy Summit and you don't have any truants here to tell you why they skip school? You might want to hear from, companies now pay hackers to figure out how to keep their system safe. They don't go talk to somebody who's never hacked. They go get the hacker and pay them to figure out how to make it safe. This has to become a culture shift for black people. This is where we have to go old school with our thinking about education. This is where we have to, and when I say old school, what I'm talking about is, as Anderson lays out, black people started schools. The reason you have publicly financed education in the South is because freed slaves were elected to the legislatures during Reconstruction, and they put it in the state constitution. And after the Great Compromise of 1877, when Jim Crow then came into effect, and when the Redeemer Democrats and the Lily White movement then came in and installed Jim Crow and then erected all those Confederate statues, they got rid of all the black advancement except publicly financed education. So when white folks talk about publicly financed education in the South, they must thank black folks because that's how it happened. So we have a legacy. We have created this. And yet today, we are literally arguing and fighting over whether or not there should be a charter school when we were actually the originators of school choice. How can we sit here and fight something that we created? School choice did not start in 1988.
School choice did not start by white folks not wanting us to go to school with them after Brown versus Board of Education. School choice started when we created our own schools during slavery because we figured out if y'all gonna kill me for knowing how to read, it's gotta be something about that book that's worthy of me losing my life. So we've allowed ourselves to get caught up in somebody else's games when what this is about is whether or not we're going to provide a future for our children. George said it when he said, this is also economic empowerment. I'm not interested only in what's happening for our kids. I need our kids to see we can actually run schools. Why am I the way I am? Because I turned down an internship with CBS News in Dallas to work at the Houston Defender. Why is it that when I was at CNN, I wasn't like other black folks who were like, oh my God, this CNN? Because my first job, a black woman, was the publisher. I grew up seeing black people run media, so I wasn't thinking, well, that's great, it's wonderful. So that's how my training. The reason I'm unapologetic because I saw black folks owning a paper, owning media, and so I then said, yes, I can too. So that's what it means. So imagine if we then begin to say, we will create high-quality charter schools. We will run them. We will be in charge of that. Imagine a kid saying, not only do I want to be a teacher, I want to be a charter school operator, which means they want to be an entrepreneur. KIPP has more than 200 schools nationwide. There should be a black KIPP. We should not be saying, well, we can't do it. No. The opportunity is literally sitting in front of us, and we are arguing over whether or not to do it, as opposed to saying it's going to happen. It is going to happen. There are 3 million children in charter schools today, and I'm telling you, next year there will be more. So we can stand here and argue and fight and say, well, when this was written and this was written, I'd rather say I'm a controller. A few months ago, 2 months ago, Randy Weingarten, AFT, Randy went off on charter saying, well, you know, charter schools were created through racism. I said, Randy, everything in America was created through white supremacy. I'm like, nice try. But every system we have was created that way. So I'm not impressed by that. We figured out, well, you created it. We're going to still figure out how to live. Folks, we are 2 years away from commemorating the 400th anniversary of the first 20-odd Africans coming to America in August of 1619. On April 4th, 2018, we are going to deal with the 50th anniversary of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. being assassinated. Next year, we will deal with the 50th anniversary of the Kerner Commission report coming out, which stated that there are 2 Americas, 1 white, 1 black. And here we are actually debating whether or not we will figure out, do we support this school or this school? I don't care what the school is. I don't care if it's a charter school, an all-boys school, an all-girls school, magnet, home, online. I don't care. If our children are getting educated, I am with it 100%. So what's next? Pull your phone out. I want you right now to send an email to this email. So a couple of things are going to happen. One, I don't believe in not capturing data. You can send an email to blackchoice@rolandsmartin.com. 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 Now, here's what should happen here in Birmingham that we did in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Tulsa, Oklahoma, with former Mayor Kevin Johnson and Michelle Reed, they asked us to come in, and Kevin Johnson said, look, unless 300 people show up, we're not coming in. George was there, I was there, Steve Perry was there. And what they did in Tulsa, they created a local organizing committee. for the people who were interested in charter schools in Tulsa, black folks there, they said, we are going to organize ourselves. They then said, we're going to choose our steering committee, and we're going to go through the process of who wants to open charter schools, how many we want to open, who has the capacity, who has the resources, land, and they then begin to go through that. They then, Yvette, they then figure, okay, who do we call with the state? Who do we call here? How do we get information? What's best practices? And now they've taken off. They are on their way to opening their first charter school. I'm not here just to say we had a town hall, we got together, it's all good. I want you to create the exact same thing in Birmingham. Now, you already have Pastor Beavers, who's already started the process. He's already gone through the process. And so you begin to operate as a collective and begin to say, okay, so he wants to open a K through 8, and the first will be K through 4, and then they'll add the other grades. Well, then somebody should be saying, well, you know what? We need a charter high school. Okay, who's that going to be? How many students are we talking about? What's that particular process? And then you begin to build from there. See, I'm of the opinion there should only be one. If there are 20 failing schools in Birmingham, replace them with 20 highly successful charter schools. If need be, have 40 charter schools. See, again, if you do what it takes, and if the system is sitting there allowing you to do it, you do it. Now, here's what we're also going to do with my initiative, because this is where the onus is on you, because it's not on me. You create this organizing committee and want to do it. What I'm then going to do is, so you saw the story that we showed you, what we will do is assist you in that with professional development, whether it's in person, whether it's through web chats, through using technology, but also I showed you best practices for a reason. What we will also do is pair you with existing black folks running highly successful charter schools to help you lay out your curriculum and lay out your practices so you're not starting at a deficit, because they've already done it. I have access to my man Eric Mahmoud in Minneapolis. I have access to Dr. Steve Perry, access to Tim King. We have access to the very people who are already doing these things across the country. There's no reason to actually recreate the wheel. No, we already have those people. So now you have a choice. We've been talking about school choice is a black choice. Now you have a choice. And that is, what are you prepared to do now? Now, let me put this in its proper context so you can understand, because there's some of y'all looking at me right now saying, yeah, you know, man, I hear you, but it sounds like too much work. I want you to look to your left. Now, I want you to look to your right. Now, I want you to look at the people behind you. Now face forward. So what I want is, I want this section of the room to stand up right here. This whole section right here. I'm about to put this in context for y'all. Don't look at me, I want y'all to look at them. There are more people, don't look at me, look at them. I need y'all to see this. I need you to visualize looking at them what I'm about to tell you. There are more people who are standing up right now in this church than the number of black people who were in a basement in Montgomery in 1955. Let me say that again. There are more people standing up right now at Bethel in 2017 than the number of black people who were gathered at a basement in Montgomery in 1955. We talk about the Montgomery bus boycott as a 381-day boycott, but the Montgomery bus boycott was a one-day boycott. The Montgomery bus boycott was never designed to go 2 days. The Montgomery bus boycott, they originally did not even ask for segregated busing to end. If you go back and look at the original demands of the Montgomery Improvement Association, they asked for better respect and treatment of black bus riders and the hiring of a few more black bus drivers. It was only after 50,000 black people did not get on a bus, they said, well, let's go for a second day. And then black folks didn't get on the bus for a second day. They said, well, let's go for 3. And then it began to build. And that's how it went 381 days. And then the U.S. Supreme Court in 1956 rendered their decision and the boycott ended. Then they said, well, what's next? They then went from Montgomery to other movements, went to Albany, New York with the Albany movement there. Then, of course, came to Birmingham, Selma, Mobile. So any college students in here? Any college students? 1. 4 college students from North Carolina A&T decided to integrate a lunch counter. They didn't ask anybody's permission. They just did it. 4. 1964 Civil Rights Act gets passed. 1965 Voting Rights Act gets passed. 1968 Fair Housing Act gets passed. How many of you have heard of Title IX? We think of Title IX as about sports. No. Title IX opened the professional schools up for women when it was passed in 1972. Who knows where Title IX comes from? Title IX is a provision of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. So the reason you have women who are doctors and lawyers and dentists and engineers is because black people marched and protested to get the Civil Rights Act of 1964. If you are people who are Vietnamese who vote in their native language, they should thank black people because if it wasn't for the Voting Rights Act of 65, they could not vote in the ballot in their native language. If you are disabled, the American with Disabilities Act is a provision of the 1964 Voting Rights Act. If you know anybody who's gay, who's excited about same-sex marriage, tell them to thank black people because it wasn't for the 14th Amendment and the Equal Protection Clause, which was one of the Reconstruction Amendments, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, then there would be no legal basis to decide that case. I'm laying that out because black people, through our changing of laws, we have actually made America more like America said it wanted to be than America actually was. If you go to India today, there's a MLK Drive. Lech Walesa led the Solidarity movement in Poland in the 1980s. He won the Nobel Peace Prize. They were singing, "We Shall Overcome." When they had the Arab uprising, they were wearing signs that said, "I am a man," which were the same signs black men wore in Memphis in 1968. Bishop Desmond Tutu said when he was a kid, they actually would read Ebony magazine and they would see black folks doing well relatively, and that gave them inspiration to end apartheid there. In fact, how many of y'all heard about the divestment campaign against South Africa? That wasn't started on college campuses. That was started by 2 black people, Ken Williams and Carol Hunter, who were black workers at Polaroid. When Ken Williams walked into Polaroid one day in 1970, and he saw this passbook, which was exactly what they used in South Africa to force black people to show their papers, and he realized that Polaroid was the one who made the book. Carolyn Hunter was a 26-year-old chemist who joined with him to protest. Polaroid said, "We will fire you 2 Negroes." Her mama said, "Baby, what are you doing? You went to school to be a chemist. Here you smart, you're brilliant, you got a good job." She said, "Mama, but this ain't right." The reason that there was a divestment movement that ended apartheid because 2 black people at Polaroid launched the Polaroid Revolutionary Workers Movement, and that's what started the movement. And even before the Congressional Black Caucus jumped on that issue, they met with Carolyn Hunter and Ken Williams, and they taught them about divestment. Why am I laying this out? Because if a handful of people in a church basement in Montgomery could literally change the world, I need you to explain to me how can more people gathered at a church in Birmingham in 2017